Welcome to 100 Yards of Football this evening as we got our SEC game, football championship game preview. It's going to be the Florida Gators taking on the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. If you like the video this evening, please comment and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And today I got two gentlemen that's going to help me break down the game to the T. My man, the first guy that's going to help me. He's been with me with 100 yards of football over the last 8 months, and he's done an outstanding job. I consider him the greatest high school football coach in the state of Georgia. My man, Kevin the Bull Jones. And the second gentleman is joining us this evening. I'm very honored. He's the athletic director of the Atlanta Public School System, and he's been doing an outstanding job during these tough times. My man, Mr. Jasper Jewell. So if y'all like the video today, please comment and share it. We are 100 yards of football. So I'm going to give it over to the Bull man, Kevin the Bull Jones, as he's going to break down Alabama and the reason they're going to win the game on Saturday.
Well, thank you, V. Glad once again, good Lord, let me be able to get up and talk some football this morning and get a chance to enjoy the day. A beautiful day. Started a little breezy, but I'm thankful to have one of the guys that I admire and look up to, not only as the leader of sports in the Atlanta Public School System, but he's also a former coach. So he knows the game. So sports fans, I wanted to be able to, I'm going to come in here grilling about Roll Tide and Bama, but I wanted to give another flavor this afternoon, sports fans. And I wanted to bring in a former veteran coach. He's been on both sides of the ball. And now we can sit and talk some X's and O's and what's really going on in the whole scheme of this game that's going down this Saturday between Florida and my Crimson Tide. It's going to be a wonderful game here in the ATL. But listen, make no mistake about it. Coach Dan Mullen is a great coach, okay? And they had a boo-boo the other night, and it was an amazing boo-boo. And I immediately wanted to talk to Jasper just to find out what, from a coaching standpoint, what's going on. And what do you think is going to happen? Because sports fans, you already know what I think is going to happen with Crimson Tide being one of the top defenses in the nation, now giving up only 16 points a game. And I'm talking about out of 10 games, not those teams that played 4 and 5 games that are at the statistical leaders in the nation. I'm talking about you played 10 games, okay? And then offensively, they got a very good, stout offense, but the Gators are the #1 passing team in college football. So, Jasper, thank you for showing up. Thank you for spending time with me. And you tell me what you think is going to happen, because I do definitely believe it's going to be a great game. But Florida got some boo-boos that got to address.
Yeah, first and foremost, let me say thank you guys for having me on the show. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be a part of the show. I love football. I love to talk with Bull Jones. We talk all the time. We talk on the phone, through text message. We talk a lot about football. We talk a lot about schematic things. We talk a lot about just basic personnel, things of that nature. Last Saturday probably was one of the lowlights. And let me just say, in my 40 years of being a former player, a former coach, of an athletic director, I don't know if I've seen a penalty that affected a game as much as that penalty did. I understand that, a lot of times we get caught up in the moment of the game, the hype of the game, but at the same time, you don't expect that type of penalty from a 3-year starter and a senior defensive back. He only missed starting 4 years because he tore his ACL at the beginning of his sophomore campaign. And I'm sure that the young man is very remorseful for it. He's sorry for it. He's cost his team. But saying that to say, first and foremost, let me give Ed Orgeron a ton of credit. He took 57 scholarship players, mostly that were freshmen and sophomores, into a hostile environment. And he said, we're going to line up and play football. They could have easily said, no, you know what? We can't play this game because we're under the COVID protocol numbers that the SEC has. But he stepped up to the plate, and he wanted his young kids to have that opportunity. So let me just say kudos to him and his staff for that. Secondly, Kyle Pitts not playing, and it was a last-minute scratch. I'm still scratching my head about that. on one hand, if he is hurt, that's understandable. But, from all of my sources telling me he really wanted to go and he really wanted to play. And the way I would look at it as a coach is he's such a superb athlete. He would have lined up and been used as a decoy, if nothing else, to help the defense shift to him so that it opens up other avenues and other passing lanes within the passing game. But yet and still, he didn't play. Kyle Pitts had a rough first half. And let's be honest, gentlemen, he's human. He's played lights out, throwing 3 or more touchdown passes in 8 ball games this year. So he's human. But Achilles heel has been, and it's been all year, it's been defense. We just hadn't been able to line up right, line up fast enough, and execute the defense. And in my opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with the complexity of the defense. We all know that Todd Grantham is a former NFL coach. He has a lot of NFL lineage. So a lot of times it seems as though we're confused on defense. And you know this yourself, Bull, being a defensive-minded coach. If the kids are thinking too much, that's going to take away from aggression.
That's right.
One thing about defense, you should be able to read and react. And if you're not able to read and react, you're always guessing as to whether you're in the right coverage, which, of course, we had a couple of busted coverages that led to a touchdown. That's going to happen. So Saturday, I think offensively, we can't turn the football over. We have to have the mindset. We have to score every time we have the football. And to be honest with you, we don't even want to get into a situation where we're swapping out field goals as opposed to they're getting touchdowns, because our defensively, we have just not been stout enough this year on the run or against the pass, for that matter, to really sustain them. So in order for us to really have a shot, we have to score every time they score and hope and pray for a turnover or a turnover on downs or a possible stop late in the game. That's the only chance we have with this football game.
Wow. Vincent, when it's all said and done, you and I sit and talk just the same way me and Jasper talk all the time. And you know how I am about Crimson Tide and the staunch fan I am. And you always pick my brain, Vincent, about Mac Jones and his proficiency and Kyle Trask. Those two guys, certainly NCAA football right now, they sit at the top, not to mention a few other guys that are up there as well, but just leaders on the field. And, I distorted the whole thing about a game manager. Neither one of them are game managers. But when it comes to the Crimson Tide, what Devonte Smith has done, and Vincent, even the times you've talked about it, it's just been unbelievable. Over 1,000 yards. You talking about the heart and soul. And might I also add, people are now talking about him as one of the leading candidates for the Heisman Trophy.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Vincent?
This great college game has had a lot of great players. And I tell you all the time, Bull, it's very special. You see that one player that comes along, and also you, Coach Jewell. But think about this when you look at Devonta Smith. He's been at Alabama, and really he hasn't really got the shine in the years leading up to his outstanding senior year like Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. Remember, them two guys went in the first round last year, and they're doing their thing on the next level. But when I look at Devonta Smith, and I've been watching this great college game ever since I was 10 years old. My daddy took me to see Tennessee State play in the 70s. When I saw Joe Street Gilliam, and when you see a player like Devonta Smith and Joe Street Gilliam, you get that thump. Then I tell you all the time, Coach Jones, that young man out of Crawford, Mississippi, Unabina. Now, I'm not going to put him in the same category, but I'm talking about on the college level. I seen this guy play in the 84 season, and his name was Jerry Rice. And we know how his career went. Can I get amen?
Amen.
Walter Payton, I saw him play in college. I saw Herschel Walker on TV. I saw the great man. I know a lot of people might not really get upset with me this evening for saying this, but the young man out of Galileo High School, San Francisco, California. I was 7 years old, O.J. Simpson. That's what I get when I watch Devonte Smith. I'm not going to lie to you, man. To me, we could talk about Kyle Trask. We could talk about Mac Jones. But let's be honest this evening, gentlemen. Devonte Smith been the best football player in college football pound for pound. And that's without even his partner in crime, Jalen Waddle. So when I think about Devonte Smith, I hope he goes on to have a great pro career. But man, on the college level, you got to put him with some of the top college players that ever came through college football. Let me throw Tony Dorsett name in there. Marcus Allen. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Players from that offensive standpoint, they dominated the game, man. And Devonte Smith is dominated on every level. And when he took that punt return back against my old school, that right there, if I had to have a Heisman vote, we could talk about all the quarterbacks in the draft. We can talk about Trevor Lawrence. We can talk about Justin Fields. But the young man, 30 miles from LSU, who decided to go to Alabama, Devonte Smith been the best football player to me in college football.
Well, I tell you, this is what I think, and you mentioned it. I agree with you, Vincent, but you mentioned it also, Jasper. You talked about the offense and not having those turnovers, not creating those situations where you put your team in a tough situation. I think on our side here, on the Crimson side, they have found a way to weather the storm about everything that happened playing Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, and all those points we had given up, and everybody was worried about Pete Golden and the defense. But I kept saying, don't worry about the defense. They're young. They got to mature. And we went literally 4.5 games without a sack. I mean, the whole defense without a sack on the season, Jasper. And all of a sudden now you see, like you said, on that defense side of the ball, read and react. And now everybody's flowing. The fascinating part I saw in the game the other day is I watched the secondary. There was an adjustment made, and the formation, and I saw all 4 secondary guys talking to each other. You could see them just looking at each other and giving each other signs to prepare themselves of the adjustments that they were made. You and I both know, Jasper, that is the labor of love when you can get 4 kids, much less 11, to get together and start talking the same dialogue. And before play starts, in formation recognition, knowing how important that is. Right now, Alabama's defense has 11 interceptions on the season, and they've scored 4 defensive touchdowns this year, and also they're number 1 in the nation in red zone defense. So with those things going on, quite frankly, the 2 strengths are going to hit each other, because Florida's offense and Pitts is the best. I mean, you can talk about what's in the NFL right now, and I beg to differ with anybody that he's probably the best tight end. He's better than some of those guys in the league right now. And the other kid, the receiver that you all have,
Kadarius Toney.
That kid is pretty good, and he showed me something. I didn't know that he had that much gamesmanship in us. Tell me, how do you think that matchup was going to work? Because I really believe in my mind that Patrick Surtain is going to have some situations where he's going to be in one-on-one situations to cover the Pitt kid for Florida.
Well, first and foremost, let me just say this. I'd be a fool if I did not give up respect and homage to Nick Saban. What he's done at the University of Alabama is unimaginable. You take a program that has gone through assistant coach after assistant coach, because those coaches are elevated to head coaches, and he continues to be at the upper echelon of college football. Heck, he just lost Butch Jones. Pretty sure Arizona will probably come calling for Steve Sarkisian because of his Pac-12 ties. And this man, they recruit, they train unbelievably, and they always put a superior, not a good product, but a superior product on the field. Now, as it relates to Kyle Pitts, he's a matchup nightmare, first and foremost. He's 6'6", 245 pounds. He runs like a deer. He's probably more of a matchup for us when we split him out as opposed to when we play him at a tight end, because now you're gonna have to make a choice. You're gonna either take a safety and attempt to cover a guy with the skill set that he has, or you're gonna take a corner, which they are undersized to cover him.
Right.
So I look forward to the matchup with him and Patrick Surtain. But I think in order for us to really have a great game, Kadarius Toney, Travion Grimes has to step up, who's 6'4", 200 pounds himself, transferred from Ohio State University 2 years ago. They're going to have to step up and play a critical role. Also, I don't know if you know it, but Dan Mullen doesn't mind matching up his backs on anybody's linebacker. He probably throws more wheel routes than anyone in the SEC. So at some point, Dylan Moses and company, they're going to have to make sure they're mindful and cognizant of those wheel routes. We burned University of Georgia 8 times for 164 yards and a touchdown with that same play.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that, our imaginations and our creativity is where it needs to be on Saturday. I hope that we can put behind what happened last Saturday, refocus in on not only being a part of the college football Final Four, because I think we played our way out of that, but being SEC champion, or at least putting a good product on the field. Because let's be real, we lose about 8 guys on offense and 6 on defense. So next year, 27 seniors. So we're going to be young, but we have some guys that have played, that have some game experience. But losing a player like Kyle Trask is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I just hope and pray that we can show up, put a good product on the field, and we're ready to play. All guns are loaded for Saturday. But either way it go, I'm proud of my Gators. We played a 10-game all SEC schedule this year. That is unheard of. And people are talking about the 5 games that Ohio State played, blase, whatever the case may be. Hey, control the controllables. Ohio State couldn't control that. They didn't have any control over that. That was with the Big Ten and their protocols and how they decided to do it. So we're just gonna try to line up right, show up, and let's put on a good play and let the best man or the best team win on Saturday.
Vincent, I can tell you right now, and you know me, because my favorite. I don't have my hat in front of me right now, but I'm gonna mysteriously make that hat come to me in a few seconds, because I always have to wear that hat when I start talking about Bama. And you know how much I love exactly those things that you said, Jasper, because I have most respect from a coaching point of view of what really goes on to the standard of excellence that Coach Saban exudes. So when you talk about composure, not having your coach for a game and still winning, one of the top rivals that you ever play every year, playing without your coach one game, and then the next game, assistant coaches, Holman Wiggins and all Sal Sinceri and all Carl Roberts and all those guys, Freddie Roach not there to be part of the game. And then you have GAs out there got to step in with permission with the NCAA to allow them, because you don't have enough coaches. As you mentioned, we're in a COVID year. So how do you keep the standard, that standard, that old long word I keep using, that Saban always talks about? He gave kudos to Coach Mullen and everything that has been going on, and being able to, because they've been hit as well, hard as well with the COVID situations and scenarios, but still being able to matriculate an offense that does what it does. For us on the Crimson Tide side, Christian Barmore is now leading the team in sacks with 6, and behind him is Will, the Terminator Anderson Jr. from Dutchtown High School, who's second on the team. And I know I went a long time. In my mind, I think I showed him some moves. Now, he might not have got them, but maybe he just got them right before he had all these sacks the last game. But in my mind, I gave him some different moves to use for the game, because he is so fast that he outruns that hump he's supposed to run. He outruns the hump off the edge. And it's so funny, because he's still kind of gangly with those arms sometimes, but he found out what to do in this past game against Arkansas. We're talking about going a long time without giving up points in a game. And now to be able to, at the point where it's the end of the season, and you're absolutely correct, weathering the storm, 10 games, SEC, everybody had to have a dog fight with each other. Past week against Arkansas, they stunned us. Here's two irregulars that happened in that game last week. It was a 12 noon start here Eastern time, which means it's what, 11 o'clock
11
Arkansas.
o'clock, yes.
Okay, so now the normal regimen, because Crimson Tide is used to playing, we're used to playing the 8 o'clock game or the 7 o'clock game or the 6 o'clock game. Wherever you want to be, it's after 5 o'clock. So now those same kids had coaches meetings Friday night and then had to get up, and it's a rat race. Now the walkthrough that you usually have, all that stuff, they were out of their system, their normal standard operating procedure of a pregame where they get up early, have a breakfast, then another walkthrough, then another meeting, and then finally they load the bus and go to the stadium. They didn't do that last week. They were literally asleep, and they stopped us. All we got was a field goal in the first quarter against Arkansas. They stunned us. They actually scored a field goal as well, and they stopped us on fourth down. So they did some things early to us. We were still sleepwalking. But just as Vincent mentioned, Mr. Smith ran the punt back for a touchdown. All of a sudden, the brakes came off, and we do what we do. And that was the magnificent part of having a composure. And I go back to Jasper, what you just mentioned about the young man who threw the shoe, who's a veteran ball player. See, Crimson Tide, and I'm not saying kids are perfect or we ask them to be perfect, but the accountability to be all about your teammates. For us here in Tuscaloosa, that situation, woe be to any kid that does anything like that, Coach Saban, because, the wrath of him is unbearable. Everybody knows it. Now, he's only 5'9", 5'8" on a great day. But when he starts to barking and he getting on his players, it's pretty impressive. But just the fact that everybody wants to be the kid that does their part so that everybody can be successful, those common words. That's what I love about this game that's coming up. I do think that Florida has a fantastic offense. I think defensively, Jasper, they're not going to be able to stop us because we've got so many people that we're going to throw the ball around to. And, maybe Mr. Cox, former player at Georgia, who's now at Florida.
Who's, by the way, another Georgia, more specifically Henry County product, who leads us in sacks. Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange?
From Stockbridge High School. Kevin Whitley back in the day.
Yes,
great
coach.
Now, and so what's going to happen? Is he going to step his game up to help Florida get where they need to be? Because I see us going a lot of smash mouth, and just the physical wear and tear of the game is going to attack Florida in the way that they're going to succumb to that beating. And once again, it's this all day. And however you look at it, whether it's Robinson running, whether it's McClellan running, whether it's Najee Harris, it's going to be that same great thing that Arkansas did to us, Vincent and Jasper. Arkansas took away our deep pass. What did we do? They played with three secondary guys playing deep ball, cover three, and they rolled the inside pony guys up to take away the flats. And like Coach Saban mentioned, all we could do was check the ball down the whole game. But eventually, it was a wear and tear deal. They did a great job of stopping us with the deep ball. For me, defensively, when I'm about to see this Saturday, I believe that we're going to have to find a way, as you mentioned, to stop Pitts. Now, what does that mean? That means they're going to put us in three safety defense, which means that we're going to have a secondary guy cover that out and up, because that's going to be a problem for us. And I agree with you on that. And hopefully it's not Dylan Moses that has to chase it. But Dan Mullen is very good at the matchup, and I'm worried about that. So whatever you all get on offense, on your offensive side, our defense, our offense is going to be able to match it. And with that being said, I think we're in for a fascinating game. But when it's all said and done, it's going to be Roll Tide in a big way because of that big pounding that's coming.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so for your sake. I'm just prayerful that we come out the gate winning the coin toss, and we have to make you guys some kind of way play from behind. That's the only thing that I can pray for, because I can tell you now, Arkansas did have a solid scheme. They didn't have the players to stay within that scheme, because now you're talking about only 5 men in the box. And 5 men in the box against Alabama is an appetite for disaster. It really is. I'm just being honest with you. It is. They were so concerned about getting beat with the deep ball and Alabama catching the ball in space. This is why they had safety nets. They played with 3 safeties. They put those ponies in, like you said, they set them right there in the flats to try to take away the short underneath intermediate stuff. But you can't stop the run against an offensive line that's as physical as Alabama's offensive line. With the big back that they have, 22 is one of the better backs that have come out of Alabama. He's quiet, unsung hero, and he's just a hard worker. So my hope is that, we can, if we have to have the offensive production game of our life, I'm gonna be honest with you. And we just need 1 or 2 breaks defensively, because I'm not anticipating us stopping you guys. I'm being honest with you. We're not going to stop you guys. We just need 1 or 2 breaks, whether it's a turnover, whatever the case may be. That's all I'm asking for. And I think if it's a game going into the 4th quarter, it's anybody's ball game. Game could be over as early as halftime, but if it's we've had tremendous 3rd quarter success this year. We've had very solid 3rd quarters. We normally we score right before the half, and we always come out in the 3rd quarter on fire. If we can maintain some sort of balance on defense, that's all. All I want us to do is line up right. If we're able to line up right, they may just outman us, but at least we've lined up right. We haven't had a lot of self-inflicted wounds and mistakes.
Wow.
And like I said, we have to execute to a high level on offense. I think Cal Trask is ready. This is his going away party. This is his coming out party. I think Mullen has something to prove as a head football coach. He's won a lot of football games, but he's never won the big game. He never won the big game at Mississippi State. I remember 4 years ago when he had Mississippi State ranked number 16 in the country, and they came in here and played University of Georgia in Athens on a Saturday night. Nick Fitzgerald was the quarterback and got beat 31-0. So he's never won the big game. So this is his time to show and prove and say, I belong with some of the upper echelon coaches, not only in the SEC, but in all of college football.
Gotcha. Yes,
I
like that. Vincent, what do you think about a score of what you see from the outside of 2 coaches just sitting here talking? Because, when we watch the game, Vincent, when old coaches who've been in them fights watch the game, my wife and sisters, they pick on me and say, you don't watch the same game we're watching. You're right, because I'm watching some preparing for the next play, and what was the reason why this play was successful, and what did they leave open for the next play? Now I'm really thinking a chess match, and that's the fun part about talking to old ball coaches, because they see a different game. They see the actual ins and outs of the success. With Jasper, you talking about those things that can happen, spreading people out, and I see from the defensive side of the ball the will to Nick Saban has said to his defense, this is another great test. But here's the elephant in the room. We want to win the SEC championship. We haven't won anything yet. There are all these prognostications about the Final Four and the playoffs. We haven't won anything yet. So it is our duty to go see those Gators out there in that dome, in that Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and show them who the best team is, and pure domination. Whether their shoe is on, or whether we knock it off of them, or whether they get up and just say, I have enough, and throw the shoe off and walk back to the sidelines.
Got jokes, huh? You got jokes.
It's to show them who the big dog is.
Well, gentlemen, like I said, y'all gave some great analysis from a coach's perspective. Y'all 2 of the best that's ever done it here in the state of Georgia. My perspective, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm just a fan. And I'm going to say this to the University of Florida. You had a tough loss the other night. Dan Mullen has taken a lot of heat today. The young man Marco Wilson is still an outstanding player. I still rate him as an NFL draft prospect. Those things happen. And what I look at a Florida team that might come in with a little chip on their shoulder. The one thing that I heard y'all talking, and I'm listening, is that I remember this. Ole Miss gave Alabama a lot of trouble offensively. Then I look at Florida's offensive production, and that production is way better than what Ole Miss is doing. Y'all talked about the young man, Kyle Pitts. It's no question about it. He's the best tight end that's came through college football. When I think about him, I think about when I was 12 years old, a young man from my hometown, Isaac Hayes, had a song out. It was a movie track came out. He's a bad mama jamma. You remember that? Shaft.
Yeah.
I call Kyle Pitts Shaft. And when I compare him to great tight ends, what about that young man that played at Oklahoma out of Little Rock, Keith Jackson? What about that young man that played out of Syracuse back in the 60s, John Mackey? And then the young man who I saw as a true freshman in 1979 that played in Missouri. I think he had a pretty good career with the San Diego Chargers. Oh, my bad, Kellen Winslow. So when you look at Florida, they got a lot of offensive production. Now, I know Alabama's been playing well defensively, but let me tell you this. This is not TJ Finley with LSU. This is not Arkansas with Flippy Franks. They got Kyle Trask that's going to come in the game, and he still got an opportunity to win the Heisman. And it's going to come down between him and Mark Jones. I'm not saying Florida's going to win the game by no means. I'm not going to disrespect Roll Tide and Mr. Kevin the Bull Jones this evening. But I'm going to say this. I expect it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be very close. And I think the Gators are going to make a serious statement. Because today, you know, one thing about life, when everybody's kicking you down and punching you, you ain't got no way to go up. And I know that Florida football team is better than that. Like Coach Jewell said, 27 seniors. They're going to regroup, and they're going to come there to play because, like Coach Jewell said, they not only have Kyle Pitts, but the young man out of the state of Alabama, Kadarius Toney, is a player. The young man, Jacob Copeland, is a player. Trevon Grimes, the player out of the Ohio State Trans, is a player. And no matter how you like Dan Mullen or not, I like Dan Mullen because he took a Mississippi State program and put him on the map with Dak Prescott. And since he's got the Florida, he's made them relevant. So I'm not going to put a bad loss on Dan Mullen and none of that. But the Gators are going to come to play on Saturday night in the Dome.
I love it. Let me just end with saying this right here. Remember this statement. And one of my former coaches told me this a long time ago, and I live by it. Adversity introduces a man to himself.
Absolutely.
You remember that now. We are being maligned, or we're being assassinated by the media, assassinated by some of our fans and even some of our own alumni. At some point, you're going to stand up and you're going to fight back. All I can say is, as good as Alabama is, and they're very good, they've never seen the semblance of talent that they will see on the offensive side of football Saturday night. Just remember that. They've never seen the assemblage of talent that we're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. I just hope you know that. We're going to leave it all on the field. All on the field.
See, that's the Jasper Jewell I know right there, Vincent. That's the Jasper Jewell I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear Coach Jasper Jewell talk. I didn't want to hear the athletic director for Ladder Public School. He can start off, but I wanted to hear the coach, the ball coach. And that sounded, he left it right there where it needed to be. That's the old ball coach talking right there. Oh, I love it. Because you're right. I think that the greatest matchup that we needed was to see a great offense and a great coach and a great program. We need to see that because ever since we lost last year, one thing about us down in Tuscaloosa, we ain't forgot that. So anything in our way has to be walked through, ran through, and gone through to get to the final destiny. And that's why I think, in spite of everything that happened Saturday for Florida, I agree with you. It's going to be a great game. I really do. It's going to be a great chess match. I think it's going to be some great football. I'm not taking anything away from Dan Mullen. I'm not taking anything away from all those kids down there in Florida that want to have a chance to knock us off our perch. But when it's all said and done and the smoke clears, you and I both know what it's going to look like. And the cream is going to rise to the top. Roll, Tide, roll. It's going to be a great game, 7 o'clock. I'm going to be texting you after every series.
And I'm going to make sure my phone is fully charged right here, ready to rumble.
Well, gentlemen, we'd like to say thank you for coming on this evening. Great analysis of the game that's going to be on Saturday night. Obviously, the biggest game in college football. I will say this is that when you look at great teams from an offensive standpoint, it's going to be fantastic to see because we're going to have a lot of NFL talent on the field.
Yes.
And when you have a lot of talent, man, it's going to be very special. So I know I'm going to be somewhere at 8 o'clock. You mentioned 7, Coach John, but it's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be in my living room getting ready to see the 2 best football, I would say the best football team in college football, the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. And don't really underestimate the Florida Gators.
That's right.
So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening. Outstanding analysis. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. As I always say, I'm going to start with a different saying this evening. Since we got Florida and Alabama, I'm going to go like the great poet Marvin Gaye. He had a song. Let's get it on!